Hey guys, I'm back. So this is our blog, our cheese blog. It still looks terrible. This heading isn't working. It's red. It's green. It's not prestige enough. So we're just gonna delete that. Yeah. If you're when you're a web developer, you really need to know when to delete stuff, when not to. You need to make the right design choice because you're a designer, and that's not gay. So what we're gonna add is we're gonna add a div that encases all of our content. Right now we have the body, but I think that's too general. We're gonna add a div with a class of container, because we're gonna call it that because it's gonna contain everything. And yeah, so we're gonna put that there. We're gonna copy everything, all of our content so far, and we're just gonna place it inside there, like so. That didn't do anything. All right, like so. I'll pause it. I'm just gonna align everything like this real quick. So I aligned everything so that it's all laid out correctly, and great. So let's save it. Let's go to main.css, and above h4 purple, we're just gonna add dot content container. We're gonna add a container, and then in here we're gonna add a margin left, which it's a new tag. It's a margin to the left. It's complicated stuff. And we're going to make it 10%. Now with percent, it's going to be 10% of the document. Margin left means that there's a margin on the left, like I just said. And there's also margin right, which is a margin on the right. And we're also going to make that 10%. Not 10%, sorry. And let's save it. Let's see what happens. So now that sort of centers it, and it adds a margin on both sides. It makes it look better. And yeah, so on our post, I'm also going to introduce another CSS thing. It's padding. So we're going to add a little space around all of the text inside of our post, so that it's not, as you can see right here, it's right up against the border. I don't really like that. So let's add some space. We're gonna make it 10 pixels all around. So what I could have done is padding left and made that 10 pix. I could have done and padding right 10 pixels, and padding top 10 pixels, and padding bottom 10 pixels. And let's remove that line. And so what that would do is just add the padding on every side. Or what I could have done is I could have just added this one line right there, and it would do exactly the same. If you just add that, it adds padding on every single side, the same amount. So you see, I reloaded, nothing happened, because this is the same as what I did before. I could have, say you wanted padding on the top 10 pixels and on the sides 25, you could also do this. And the way that works, I'll explain in a moment. I'll just demonstrate that it actually does work. It works like that. Is padding is a general term for each direction. So it's what you could do is that this is the first length you put in is the top. This is right. This is bottom, and this is left. It goes in clockwise order. So top, right, bottom, left. If you didn't have these two, it would fill it in. So the top, it would just repeat this over again. So it would just fill it in as 10 pixels and 25 pixels automatically. And if you didn't have that, it would do it for everything. So if you just had that, it would automatically do 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 10 pixels. So that's what I'm just going to do, because I don't need to write it over and over again. So there's a nice padding around everything. And I'm going to add yet one more CSS. This is going to be a really big day for CSS. And that's a border radius. Right now we have a border, except I'm going to add a border radius. I'm going to make it 5 pixels. I'll explain what that is in a moment. So as you can see, the edges are curved now. The border radius just curves the edges. It just curves the edges. And say I only wanted the top edge curved, I could do border radius border top left radius, and that would only apply the radius to the top left. Here, I'll show you. You see, now only in the top left there's the radius, but I want everywhere to be a radius. And you could also do top right and bottom left, but I'm gonna make everything have a radius of 5 pixels because I feel like that's a good radius. And alternatively, I can just get rid of the border and what that would do is it would just curve the white a bit like that, and I think that looks a bit nicer. It still curves the edges, except there's no more border. So you can have a border radius without having a border. All it does, it just curves the edges, and I think it looks really nice. It looks really professional. You can start to see that this is coming out really nicely. We have a nice title, we have a nice subtitle, except the only problem is that our subtitle is smaller than our post titles. So let's switch that around a bit, because that's not good. Let's change that to an H2. Let's change that to an H2, and let's change these to H3s. And when you change it, you have to change the closing and the opening tag. Otherwise, it messes stuff up. Just remember that. Closing tag and opening tag. There we go. That makes it a bit nicer. So yeah, now we have these giant posts, and we have a nice title, and we have nice posts. And say we want to have, a post date, like this date. The date is, what's the date right now? It's the 2nd of May, 2014. So under each title, we're gonna add a date. So I'm gonna introduce another tag now. In fact, 2 other tags, span and I. So we're gonna have span, which is like basically the equivalent of a div, except that it's not a block element. It's an inline element, which means that it won't add the space above it and under it as normal elements would. I mean, as div or other block elements would. And we're gonna give this span a class of date. And then in the span, we're gonna add an I, and I stands for italics. And we're gonna write 5th of May, and then not May, and 2014. Save. I'll show you what that does. There, 5th of May 2014. And we're gonna add that under all the titles, all the posts. I'm gonna add span class equals date, and then we're gonna close that. Then we're gonna do I, which stands for italics, and then 5th of May. I'll tell you why I added the span class of date in a moment. I just need to do this for each. You know what? I think it'd just be easier if I just copied that and made it in line, because right now it looks a bit disorganized. And let's go back to the main. Let's go all the way to the bottom, and we do dot date, because it was a class and its name was date. If it was an ID, we'd add the pound sign, and we're gonna make it font size. That's self-explanatory. It just changes the size of the font. We're gonna make it 14 pixels. I don't know how big our font is right now, so I'm just gonna experiment with it. And you see that makes it a bit smaller. It means that it's not as important as this data right here, as you can see. But oh no, that's a glitch. We don't want that. Why is it doing that? Let's find out. let's go to, and the reason for that is that. Why is it doing? So as you saw here, it has the date all messed up. We want the date to be like that, not like that. The reason for that is that, remember, this is a paragraph and it's a block element, so it adds the space above it and under it. We're going to want, the image is not a block element, so it just displays in line. So what we need to do is we're going to need to add a break rule under each date so that it adds a new line and it doesn't look messed up. So let's change that, and it still looks a bit messed up. We want there to be a space. We could have changed that to div so that it would have done it automatically, but you know, whatever. We can do that. You can do that in your own time, maybe, if you would prefer that. Because I mean, I don't want to do anything with you guys. Remember, you guys have to practice. I mean, I don't want to do everything for you. You guys should practice. You should practice just making some basic documents. You should practice just making some basic sites. Just practice. Practice your CSS, practice your HTML. If you practice, good things will happen to you. So good things happen when you practice. As you can see, this is really starting to come along. You can really start to see how this is going to turn into a real website. Next tutorial, we're going to add a header, like a navigation bar at the top. We're going to add another page too. And please come back for the next tutorial. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and code. Have fun.